Welcome back to the show, my fellow extraordinary Americans. For today's guest, we have Amy Lau. Amy is an entrepreneur and business coach. Her extraordinary journey began with a courageous move from China to Hong Kong and eventually to the United States, driven by her family's pursuit of a brighter future. While overcoming barriers as a first generation immigrant, Amy quickly mastered English to aid her parents and even negotiated for them, a testament to her resourcefulness. Her academic endeavors at the University of Washington and Seattle University Law School laid the foundation for a successful career spanning 2 decades. With an impressive portfolio including collaborations with IBM, Oracle, Microsoft, Cisco, and Salesforce, Amy's accomplishments exceed $100 million in revenues and multiple prestigious awards. Yet Amy's true brilliance lies in her ability to establish profound human connections and cultivate lasting client relationships. As a result, she now coaches business owners to achieve hypergrowth in sales, navigating a fast-paced and fiercely competitive landscape with precision. Guided by a values-based approach, Amy understands her clients' visions and challenges and fosters enduring partnerships as a result. Together with her business partner and her husband, they utilize a holistic, well-rounded approach to advise their clients in sales, finance, and operational strategies, including go-to-market, scaling, or exit. Amy is what I call an extraordinary American, and I'm honored to have her on the show. Amy, are you there?
Hi, Cosmos. Yes, I'm here. I'm so happy to be here with you today.
Amy, I'm so honored that you took the time to do this podcast with us. So I know that you're an entrepreneur, you're a business coach, and you've been into sales, and you're also like an immigrant. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself, your background, and how you got started?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, when I was a child, my father, I was born in China, in Guangzhou, China. My father was a neurosurgeon and he was the head of the hospital. And we were very lucky that he saved a communist official's life in surgery. And we were given train tickets to leave communist China and get to Hong Kong, eventually getting to the US, and where I grew up in Seattle since I was 8 years old. The rest of my family, a lot of my aunts and uncles, they swam from China to Hong Kong to get to a place that they felt more free and to be able to pursue opportunities, also eventually migrating to the US. Most of my family did. So in terms of just getting to Seattle, I felt that there was like all of a sudden the air was just really clear in arriving to Seattle, and there were flowers and trees everywhere. And I had never seen that before in Hong Kong because it was a crowded place. There were a lot of markets, and Asia, as you know, is very different in terms of environment than the US. I went to school and I was wearing my patent leather shoes, little frilly dresses. That's how we dress, other than a school uniform that I was in. And everybody else was dressed in overalls or jeans and tennis shoes. And so I had to really adjust to not only the language, but adjust to the culture and really learn to assimilate and belong. And that was the first time that I felt that, oh, I'm different. Because when I was raised with other children in Asia, in Hong Kong, there was this feeling of acceptance and that we were all the same. And when I came to America, I felt a little bit different, and I had to really adjust to that and overcome some of those obstacles of being different and learning English and then adapting between the cultures that I lived in at home with my parents being Chinese and coming to school and not being able to really translate that culture and just trying to fit in.
Well, Amy, there's so much to ask over here, but first I wanted to ask, like, how did your family manage to go, really go from China to Hong Kong? And second was, how did you get over this language barrier, which I know is like a huge barrier for like a lot of immigrants if they want to like succeed over here, you know?
Well, I was 8 years old, and for an 8-year-old, it's easier to adapt and really learn a new language than it would be for even a 12-year-old, right? So I learned English very quickly because out of necessity of just being able to communicate with anybody in America. And then my parents actually had a much harder time because they were much older. And my father, being a well-known surgeon and very successful in the medical career in China, was now finding himself without a job, and he couldn't really find a job that fit his skill set. He learned English from a dictionary, and it was because at the time he wasn't allowed to learn English back in China. And because he learned English from a dictionary, he was slow at it. And when he was taking the American Medical Association exam, he couldn't pass that. So he became a garbage man. He sold Amway. He sold jewelry. He worked in a rehab center. He was a draftsman. He tried everything. But my mother really came to light in terms of, she married a doctor and she was going to be a housewife raising the kids, my brother and I, my little brother and I. But she went to work as a seamstress, and then eventually she landed a job at Virginia Mason Hospital, cleaning the hospital for 20 some odd years before she became a lab technician, because the nurses and doctors really loved her, and she developed relationships with them and they gave her an opportunity. So pretty much my mother carried us and made sure that we had food on the table and a house to live in. But as a kid, translating from my parents became a normal thing. So I grew up very quickly and learned English so that I could translate for my parents, take them to the doctor's office, to the dentist, translate for them, help them to negotiate for a car, and also negotiated to buy our first house. And so, it was all driven out of necessity. I'm very grateful for the sacrifices that my parents made so that we can have opportunities, my brother and I, to live in freedom and to live the American dream and bring that about. But along the way, there were, a few glitches where we really had to come through for our parents. And for instance, I didn't know how to do homework, some math problems or some history or anything. And my parents were not in a position to help me with that. And so I would sit in my room and just figure it out, and with no help, because my parents were not in a position to help me with that. I learned to be resourceful, and I learned to be resilient, and I learned to be their support. It was almost like the roles were switched, and now I was responsible for them at a very young age.
Wow, Amy, like it's really like tremendous, like how you managed to go through all these barriers and then you eventually became very, like, I know that you're very successful at whatever you do. You're really driven, you're motivated, you're really entrepreneurial. Can you tell the audience a little bit more about how you evolved from that to making like you get to the point where you made about $100 million in sales overall over a period of time? Because I think a lot, there are a lot of nuggets over here that the audience can glean into.
Yes, thank you, Cosmos, for that question. I was a very shy kid. I was not shy before, and I was always the storyteller back in Hong Kong. So my father used to tell me these stories about the Monkey King or some fairy tales in the night, and then I would go to bed. And the next day I would go to school, and we had something called chapel in school before the school started, and everybody had to listen to a sermon. But instead of listening to the sermon, they would listen to me tell them what my father told, the stories that my father told me, recount it to them instead of the sermon that we were at chapel. So I always knew that I was a storyteller and able to connect and communicate with people, but I forgot all of that when I came to the US. Because I had to learn English, I wasn't accepted. People thought I was weird, and that I, bought clothes from the thrift store or something, because we couldn't really afford much and we didn't know because we were growing up poor. And so as a result of all of that, I learned how to, build something for myself, but I was introverted because I was very shy at communicating. I didn't feel like I belonged. And so most of my communication came in the form of writing. I love to read and write, and I love to critique and write essays. I could write anything and be totally eloquent on paper until I finished college, and I had to find a job after college, and somebody gave me a sales job of all things. And I thought to myself, how am I going to do a sales job? I don't know how to talk to people or sell anything. And so I was back in the day where, we were not really given any scripts. I was selling for non-carbon required NCR paper. I didn't, have anything, I had a phone book. They didn't have any lists available for us to go by. And so it was like, okay, the other sales reps in the department had gotten their accounts, and they said, don't touch these. So I was allowed to touch other accounts that nobody claimed. So probably the bottom of the barrel. And so I went to my uncle, and I needed to build my confidence. So I went to my uncle, and he bought a box of paper receipts from me, and he was my very first customer. So he gave me the confidence, and I figured out, okay, if he trusts me, maybe I can sell some other things. And so I went and just knocked on doors and just asked people, and lo and behold, that side of me developed. And to this day, I feel that sales skills are the most important life skill that you can have. And I'm very grateful that my boss, Sam Wan, gave me an opportunity to do a sales job and to come out of my shell and emerge as the person that I am today. And I won some sales awards to my surprise. And I learned that I can build trust and lasting relationships. And I was pretty good at negotiations because I actually negotiated the house for my parents and so forth.
Oh, Amy, so here's the thing, right? They say that sales is the lifeblood of any business, right? Like you have to do sales. But you see, a lot of people, they're really afraid of doing sales. Like even though like they understand that you got to get the money, like incoming money. Like if they're starting a business, they would do anything else except doing sales. So what would you tell somebody regarding how to overcome their fear of like doing of like selling something to someone?
I have actually encountered a lot of that resistance to sales in both business owners that I've coached, as well as friends and family and people that don't understand how sales works. And so I would say to them, don't be overwhelmed by the sales. Is not me providing you or selling you something that you don't want or need. That's the old school, like that idea of that used car salesman of, you walk off the lot and that deal is no longer available, or let me talk to my manager. Sales is actually education. And you, as a salesperson, have information about a product that you absolutely need to find the market. If somebody absolutely needs that, and you're giving them information they wouldn't have otherwise received if they didn't encounter you. And so it's your obligation as a teacher to, if you have something that is really life-changing and it's going to benefit others and there's value in it, it is absolutely your responsibility to go and tell people about it. And if they don't like that, or this is not for them, then you need to also, as a salesperson, if you're, building a business, you need to find that no and get to that very quickly, so that you are not wasting time talking to people that are not interested in your product. And so it really saves both people time to do a discovery call or a discovery process really quickly, and then to find out whether there is an interest. There's time. We have something called BANT in sales, which is you're looking at, is there an opportunity, and is there, let me go back and talk about, there are the three questions that you have to answer before you approach a company in terms of technology sales that I've been used to, which is why buy anything? And then the second question is why buy it now? And then the third question is why buy from you? And if you can answer that question in the positive for all three, then you want to approach the company. So you take some doing in terms of research and understand what the fit is. And if you can provide somebody a return on their investment, then it is a good decision for them to buy from you. But I'm only talking about the logical aspects of sales. Sales is really about somebody makes a decision to buy from you only when they trust you. So it's an emotional decision. So when a manager or a decision maker, somebody that is looking for a product, they have to see the value that is going to add to their lives, to their company, to help them get promoted, or choose. I used to sell for IBM, and one of the models was that nobody ever got fired when they bought IBM. So that's a safe decision to buy. But I think at the end of the day, what you're asking, Cosmos, is why would you be scared of selling something that people are really needed? And it's your responsibility to bring that about so that people are able to look at the product maybe in a different light and understand the value that it can add to their lives. And if they don't see that value, that is okay. We can walk away friends. It's no harm, no foul. Or if you don't need it right now, maybe we want to, talk to you a few months down the road when you're more conducive, like you're open to that opportunity. But it's just an exploration, and there's no obligations for either side. And I think that it's important to know that a sale doesn't happen where I force somebody to buy something and they don't want it, and that is a win-lose relationship. For a good salesperson is looking at a win-win relationship every single time. So for me, if something doesn't have a win-win component on both sides, it is not worth the sale.
Amy, I totally agree with you. And what you're saying is practical and logical. But like whenever I've asked like people randomly like about like their thoughts about sales, like I normally get like these two extremes. One is of course the snake oil salesman or the used car salesman image, right? And the other one is like the Wolf of Wall Street image, like where you're like the high flyer, you're basically selling them these things that are like junk bonds or whatever, and then you're like raking in all this cash, and then but then it's like not like real. So I feel like in the public perception there's something like inauthentic about sales or like salespeople, I suppose, but it's obviously like a kind of like a misconception if you think about it, right? Because you're just basically trying to give them the value that they require. But I think that's kind of like a subconscious fear a lot of people have when they think about sales. But I don't know, what's your opinion on that?
Well, I look at it from a business owner standpoint. If you have a product or service or solution, what made you build that company in the first place, right? What made you decide that this is the product or service or solution that people need? If you don't have passion about it and you just think this is going to be something that people buy, then I would advise like don't do that business, because I really feel that emotional component that you have, this is going to help make a difference in somebody's lives, in lives. This is going to, I really truly believe this product is going to be a paradigm shift for people. It's going to really bring value and benefit. If you don't have that, then don't create the company. But if you have that and you have that passion behind your product, bring it about. And then if you understand like why you created this product to put it out in the marketplace, then you want to create the good systems and processes in place to support that product going to market correctly. And also in terms of building a business, not just sales, you got to look at begin, I feel like, with the end in mind. Like, what do you want to do with this business ultimately? Do you want to pass it on to your successors? Do you think that you can sell this business to another company? Do you have an acquisition strategy? What is your exit strategy? And then you can actually build your business from there and create that. So in terms of sales, really, it is a service and it is the lifeblood of a company. If a company does not have sales, and one of the concepts I have is that all of the different departments, whether your product development or your operations, finance, and so forth, engineering, anything, marketing, all the oars need to be rowing in the same direction, which is supporting and being part of the team to support the sales function, the sales function. Because if salespeople aren't able to succeed, aren't able to sell the product, you don't have a company. So that is how important it is to be aligned with that. So if you're an engineer and you're shy, you're in accounting and so forth, that's okay. But think about like how you can individually support the sales process within the company so that the sales can happen. And that is job security in turn for you.
So that is awesome, Amy. And like there's a continuation of this thing, right? Is I wanted to ask you a question about resourcefulness. So, in the beginning, when a lot of people, they're starting like a company or they're starting a business, they barely have like any money to begin, right? Like they have to be very frugal with their funds and they need to make sure that it's applied and put into the right places. So what would be your advice to somebody that wants to start a business, but they want to know how to be resourceful, like how to go about being resourceful about it? If they're starting from scratch or they're just starting with like maybe just $10,000 or $20,000, like as an investment kind of thing.
I think that is a very good question. And there are so many different approaches to building a company. Most importantly, there are some things that you can do with no money, right? You can get on the internet and you can do your market research. I would consider if like the product that you are thinking of, doing a SWOT analysis and doing a market analysis in general, assess, is there a demand for these products? And so you can do a lot of it on your own without spending any money in terms of budget. And then you can start thinking about, when you have the exit strategy, as I mentioned, you can start thinking about what are some components that you can add if you're a solo entrepreneur. What are some components that you can add, that tools that can help you? So start researching. Right now, AI is a big component right now for people to do research. They can do their social media and have basically an assistant that is like the smartest person you ever met be on your team. And it's a minimal fee of maybe $20 a month for you to be able to get started. So really you can, the barriers to entry are different today to starting a business. You can really start on a shoestring budget or, bootstrap the whole thing yourself. And then beyond that, as your product grows, it's important to sequence things correctly. So the initial assessment, you can build a business plan and then you can have a marketing plan. Those two are very different plans that are looked at by different people, different departments. And if you're both, you got to start thinking about how you can start delegating those responsibilities as you grow. So you can start like $10,000 or $20,000 and utilize the systems, but take the time to learn that from A to Z on your own. Even if you're going to delegate that later on to others, you need to understand how the data flows, how the processes flow and understand how it can be successful. So then you can allocate the correct resources within your company in order to address them, and then have the tools flow. Like if you hire a salesperson back to the sales, and before everything is ready, there's no pricing structure, you haven't thought about anything. I've actually had somebody come to me without any structure at all, no marketing. And I think they mistakenly thought that marketing and sales and pricing were the same things. Now, there's an opportunity for a salesperson to come in and say, okay, this is where I can actually do all the research and I can actually provide you, this is how much you need to be paying me versus this much, because I have done all the research and done the jobs of 3 different people in marketing, sales, as well as pricing, and maybe even some engineering behind it, right? So the sequencing is, don't hire for someone that you're not ready to hire yet. Build the tools and the support so that when you hire, for instance, your salesperson, you're ready to go, you have the tools to make them feel, motivate them and be successful. Another, from a sales perspective, another thing I see entrepreneurs doing is that they want to save and they want to be on a budget. Well, you can clip coupons all day long and be able to live pretty well utilizing the coupons, but is that the best use of your time? So really understand that saving and budgeting, that's great, but when you have sales going gangbusters and they're selling things left and right, it is great to have a compensation program that really rewards these salespeople so that everyone is learning and earning, and they're able to continue building your business and having that revenue stream coming back to you to support your business at the beginning, so it goes in a full cycle.
Thank you so much for those nuggets. Like, it's very interesting. Like you're thinking in a very process oriented way, and that's definitely what you need in order to like succeed in business. But also another thing that I realized during my time like interviewing a lot of entrepreneurs, and also in my this thing is motivation, right? Like we can have all of the techniques and the know-hows, but ultimately if we're not motivated, we're never going to get things done. But somehow one thing I've noticed with immigrants is that they seem to be very driven and motivated to make it succeed in whenever they go to another country. And so like just to ask you, like, what was the driving motivating factor that made you push through all the barriers that you had to face, and what can somebody do to have motivation in their own life in order to succeed in whatever they do?
Absolutely. I went through some difficulties as an immigrant, but I would actually recommend a short immigrant diet for for people. It is actually making something out of nothing sometimes, because you came to this country a lot of times. As I mentioned, my father was well known in his profession and people looked up to him. We came to this country and we had to start from scratch and from nothing. And so it's really sometimes when you're being actually pushed against the wall is when you create things and you realize there are possibilities that you didn't realize that you had that potential inside of you. And so that really just brings out your potential. It's like make it or break it. And it is kind of like the sink or swim. So we were lucky because my uncle was already here. We were sponsored by his wife's family. They were Japanese Americans. So the Japanese American family sponsored us to come to the US, and my uncle set us up with at least an apartment when we got here. Everybody was in the same room at this apartment, but it was, just building a base. And as an immigrant, I believe that you appreciate all of the things that perhaps being American, you just take for granted because you lived with it all your life and you had this abundance and this wealth all your life. But as immigrants, we started with nothing. And so everything that we get is like a milestone. And we think, wow, you know, we made it. We were able to buy a house. We got a car. We made it. We don't have to live in an apartment, right? And I was very fortunate to have a philosophy that was instilled by my parents to study a lot and to learn and to educate myself. And so I was able to receive a full ride scholarship through college that paid for my tuition, books, and some living expenses so that I can concentrate on school. But I still worked part-time at Nordstrom during the summers so that I could buy clothes and at a discount. I still worked at the bank, you know, during the summers and other, you know, hours. I worked at my friend's parents' gas station when I was 15 years old so that I can earn extra money, because I felt that I needed to be independent. I needed to have money. I wasn't sure living in my household if we were going to be homeless from day to day sometimes, and if there's going to be food on the table. So I wanted to make sure for myself that that was going to be there, and I was there to also support my parents and alleviate their burden a little bit, because they had such a hard time assimilating and you know, being in this country. One of the stories is that my parents were very educated, and they came from a particular class that wasn't looked at particularly favorably in our country, and that drove us to immigrate into America. In America, this is the land of opportunities, and people accept you. Even though we felt like we were different, people see that, and they have curiosity and they want to learn from you. So aside from some of the negative stories out there of, you know, persecution, I also experienced some positive feedback and a lot of people who were willing to help and to bring you up and to help you to, you know, find a job, locate some things for you. I was given tremendous opportunity and a scholarship that took me through entire years of college that my parents couldn't have been able to afford. So because of that, I feel that I can now contribute because I have had the resources to help me. Now I can be there and pay this forward by contributing in my way.
No, Amy, like what you're saying is really true. Like I experienced it myself as an immigrant, because I realized that the people here are really tolerant and accepting, and then they become friends with you and everything. And there's just more opportunities over here. Like as immigrants, we tend to appreciate what we have, because in my case, I originally came from India, and till 1991, it was basically more, it had the philosophy of socialism, right? And I know China, like even though like right now it's going being capitalist, it's having capitalistic trends, it was communist for the most part. But like most people who are living in America don't realize like what the situation was in the eastern part of this planet. And like they're like basically the entrepreneurial and capitalism and the entrepreneurial opportunities that are provided here are just so different. Like the vibe and like the way where anything is possible if you work hard and if you work smart. And since we have appreciation and gratitude, and we are really education oriented, like we manage to take advantage of that. So that's something that I realized during my time over here.
Yeah, absolutely. I am so much in gratitude for the people that have lifted me up and helped me along the way. And I feel that as immigrants, we really appreciate that, being here and being able to take advantage of these opportunities. Because back in China, sometimes we didn't feel safe talking about anything, and that you might, you know, but somebody can tell on you and it would be misconstrued, and then you would get into trouble from a political standpoint. So that wasn't there. There's a freedom of speech here. So not only the land of opportunity, but you're free to learn whatever it is that you want to learn. The world is your oyster here. You can be anything that you want, and you can change professions. I've done that several times. and you can, follow and pursue your dreams, and you're free to do that in America. I'm not saying you can't change professions and so forth in the East, but the idea is it's just a different way, and conformity is a little bit more there, where here we celebrate the differences and we celebrate independence. And we're saying that, hey, you know what? You can forge your own path and anything is possible. So I really believe in that.
No, I mean, it's pretty true. Like, I believe that too. Another thing that I noticed, like, I know you talked about status. So, like how there's like nations in the eastern part, like, at least in India, like there's still these vestiges of like caste system, or what's your status or this and that. But like when I came to America, like that was not really much of a case. Like I never really, like, you could basically talk with anybody, like of like, at least in my experience, of like different races and colors, and it was just like normal. It was just like extraordinary to me. Like when I came to UT Austin, University of Texas at Austin, like there's black, white, there was Asian and everything. Like I never really had an issue with like, oh, this person is black or this person is brown, this person is white. No, we talk to everybody freely, and like whether somebody's a millionaire or somebody's like poor. Like I talk to people whose fathers are really rich, and then I talk to people that are working 2 to 3 jobs because their parents are not paying for their university tuition. And then we just like, if there was a complete dissolution of all these artificial barriers that they had in like all these other countries, and that's what made me love this nation so much. But yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it is a freedom that is worth preserving for sure. Because there's freedom of speech. Of course, there are, systemic like problems that people are mentioning as we grow and expand as a nation. But if you look at, the other, if you look through history and see what the developments are, we have a democratic system, we have freedom of speech, we have the opportunities, and we have a supportive government that is here for us to help us to continue to thrive. And so don't discount that. I've been traveling a lot. I've been to 38 countries, and I've learned a lot. And every time I go to a different country, I come back and I appreciate being and living here in the US a lot more, because there's also that convenience factor, right? Things are convenient here. In China, for instance, you have to go into one line for something and then go into another line for something else. I mean, it doesn't have that congruence. And so I just feel that it is so much more relaxed. And we also have a very hardworking culture. And each of us believe that we can be the lucky ones in the next phase. Like, it doesn't matter where we are today. Tomorrow, things could change. And it could be a bright future if you're willing to put in the work. And also not just working hard at a job, but working on yourself and your mindset and being positive. I'm not saying that we're all happy all the time. None of us are. Everybody has problems. But when you come in with yourself and dial into yourself, and you know that you can, turn anything into an opportunity, which is what I believe in, then everything becomes an opportunity, because that's the world that you see through that lens of opportunity.
And the last thing you said, Amy, was so true. Like if you can about turning anything into a positive or into an opportunity, like these are like some of the common things I see among immigrant entrepreneurs that come to America and become successful, is they take anything and they can turn into an opportunity, and they're very education and resource, and they're very education oriented, and they're very resourceful. And this combination of these traits, they're very appreciative, they're very grateful, they're resourceful, they're education oriented, and they just turn everything into an opportunity, and everything can be an opportunity. And those are basically that's the entrepreneurial mindset that it takes to like basically be successful in business, other than being highly motivated, which I notice you're very driven and motivated. Like whatever you do, you seem to succeed, you know?
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, I've failed plenty of times, and I really believe in failure, I have to say, because failure defines success. I can't tell you how many times I've fallen flat on my face. I've tried to start businesses that didn't go anywhere, and I had to learn from that. And it's, back to the sales thing, is creating the right avatar of people. Like, who is your ideal customer profile? What do they do? What do they eat in the morning? How do they run their lives? Are they going jogging? What kind of person are they? How are they? How do they feel throughout the day? What are the challenges and what are the pains, and can you address those? And so if you look at failure, I actually very much am grateful for the times that I fell flat on my face and I didn't, maybe I got fired from a job, or like I got laid off because the company ran out of resources or funding and so forth. You need to look at those and say, okay, how am I going to do better next time? And what am I going to watch out for? I'm going to enter a company that is very well funded. And also there's look at their product lines and their offerings. Is it something that I could actually really believe in, and I can see a future with that? Is there financial, are they financially stable? And so with every failure that you encounter, it is an opportunity. It doesn't feel like it at the time, and you just want to you just want to die sometimes. But I think that those are the times when you really need to then dial into yourself and say, you know what, let's do a reset, and you can rise from the ashes. And I believe that for everyone, that we're here for something. Each one of us is here for a purpose. And I am amazed at when we live on our purpose, what we can accomplish.
No, Amy, the part that what you're saying about failure is so true. Like I always say that failure is a stepping stone to success. Like in order to succeed, you need to have what is called data collection, and you're not going to get data collection unless you fall like at least like 5 or 6 times, and then you start gathering, oh, well, what are you doing wrong, and then how am I going to improve the next time? And that's what leads to success. But a lot of people like they fall flat on their face once and they're like, oh, I don't want to do this again. And then you see, this is the mindset that it takes to succeed in business or like in entrepreneurship, is how do you handle the concept of failure?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it from a personal life standpoint, there were times I've been divorced and I'm remarried now, but I dated for many years, and I had to kiss a lot of frogs, if you will, in order to understand and really appreciate my husband today and all of the things that he does to support us in our relationship. So I feel that with everything that you encounter, it doesn't feel good at the time, or you feel like you just want to check out for a bit, but don't. I mean, yes, go and process your emotions, grieve, forgive yourself, and then learn to rise again, because it's worth it. That's life.
No, totally, Amy. So, Amy, I wanted to ask you. So, I know you do a lot of you do coaching for people in business, right? Can you tell the audience a little bit more about that and like what that entails and all of it?
Yeah, absolutely. I had about 25 plus years of sales background in technology companies, sales leadership, as well as I worked in digital transformation, and I worked in consulting. And I took that experience and harnessed it, put it together so that I can help business owners. Because I feel that business is business, whether it's big business or a small business. And small business can actually really benefit from the systems and tools and the proven methodologies that worked in a bigger business, and that's how they were able to scale and grow. How did they do it from the beginning, right? so that it starts with, you always got to start somewhere, and a small business can learn to grow. I work with companies that are in business and they've been successful, and maybe they want to continue to grow and scale. We do an assessment, both from a financial operations and sales perspective, and understand what their market looks like, where are they currently, and where do they want to be, and we help to take them there. And I think that it's really important to kind of begin with the end in mind and have an exit strategy, again, of where you want to go with this company and how to achieve that in the end, by understanding what the end looks like, so that you can go back to the beginning and reverse engineer that. So I help companies with that. I also coach CEOs and C-level executives on their mindset. It is very important when things go wrong, because things are inevitably going to go wrong at some point, to have a healthy mindset, understand how to process that information and process it in a way that is going to turn it around and serve you in a positive way. So I always say, in relationships, everything is about relationships. And I love to bring out people's stories, help them harness it in a way that it can help them to grow their business. And that's part of sales. And I really believe that people are, we have so many capabilities among us, and I want to, foster the creative power within everybody and empower that, so that we can all collaborate together. We're really not in a competitive culture, because we understand that competition, it's healthy. Competition is good, but ultimately I believe that our world works when we can collaborate with each other. We can partner strategically with the right people and bring something about that is stronger than us doing it, by ourselves. So
that's awesome, Amy. So Amy, is there any project that that is upcoming right now, or any project that you're doing that you want the audience to get a glimpse into?
Yeah, I actually am going to be speaking at Gain Growth Accelerator Network event, November 3rd in Ontario, California. And I'm going to be talking about scaling and growing your business. There is going to be a really amazing speaker lineup of that. So I'm excited. They're going to talk about sales, spirituality, marketing, all of the things that you need to grow your business and to scale that. So I'm excited, and I will be passing out some more information on our website as well. So
speaking of which, Amy, how can our audience connect with you and get to know more about you and what you're doing, and your website as well?
Yeah, absolutely. The website is being refreshed, but it is the wowfactorusa.com. Wow spelled W-A-U. A funny story is that it's my blend of my last name and my middle initial.
Nice.
Yeah.
And how can the audience connect with you, like through LinkedIn or social media?
Yeah, I'm definitely on LinkedIn. I am also in social media as Wow Factor, W-A-U Factor. And yeah, connect with me, set up a discovery call with me. My website is thewowfactorusa.com. And you can include that later on for people to connect with me.
That's awesome, Amy. Amy, I want to let you know that it's really truly like an honor to have you on this show, and your ability to overcome a lot of barriers and succeed in life is truly inspirational. I definitely would want to have you at the show back at a later time.
Oh, I would love that, Cosmos. Thank you. I would be
Yeah,
honored.
thank you so much for taking the time to do this. And I want to conclude this podcast by letting my fellow extraordinary Americans know that, look, there's an extraordinary within each and every one of us, and it's our duty to awaken it and unleash it. Until next time, bye for now. Hey there, everyone.